Hello everyone and welcome back to IMO Reviews. Today we have another movie review catch-up for you. And let's start with Last Breath. Last Breath reenacts the true story of deep-sea maintenance divers, where in a huge storm, one of the divers gets lost in the deep ocean, and it suddenly becomes a rescue mission before he runs out of oxygen. I was pretty excited to check this one out. I actually find deep-sea diving and the ocean to be such a fascinating and interesting landscape for cinema. And of course, Woody Harrelson was in it as well, and I love that guy. I'm going to check out pretty much anything that he does. And I can gladly say that Last Breath was thoroughly enjoyable. I thought it was fascinating, so interesting to see how this job is done. It's completely unknown to me, and I really did manage to appreciate the complexities and the difficulties of the work that they do and how necessary it really is. And I want to commend the crew and the director so much for how well this movie was filmed and put together. They really cared about the authenticity here, and it shows. Even to the extent of training each of the actors in deep sea diving and filming many of these scenes in the deep ocean. They even cleverly use real footage of the real event that happened. So not only can you see how authentic and accurate that they are portraying this story, but you get a genuine insight to what really did happen. I found it all so gripping. I really was on the edge of my seat throughout. The lighting was cleverly done. It did create a tense atmosphere at times. I do think it was pretty well paced as well. But I do have just a very small handful of complaints with this movie, some of which are so minor I kind of feel harsh mentioning them. I do think there is an odd golfing class in the cast here. You have the likes of Woody Harrelson and Simu Liu, who I thought were outstanding throughout, and they really did hold their job down well. They did add a bit of personality, depth, and even have some very small pointless arcs to their characters. But in these two in particular doing a fantastic job, it did make the rest of the cast look significantly smaller and less able. The guy from Peaky Blinders, who is the one being rescued, I'm sorry, he's not a good actor, and I don't think his dialogue was very good throughout this movie. He has some scenes with his wife. I didn't believe their relationship or romance for a second. It was this weird blend of serious Hollywood actors and part-time BBC drama actors, and their abilities were chalk and cheese, and it did stick out throughout the movie, sometimes even pulling me out of it. I also think the music was kind of weird. There's times where it feels very generic and head-scratching as to why this music is playing right now. It feels utterly unnecessary, and in fact the ambient noise and all of the sounds of the engines whirring would have been far more interesting and atmospheric, and it would have added to the realism as well. And finally, I do think the movie has been extremely accurate to the real story, but I still feel like there's a bit of cliche in there at times. I think they're playing into it and they're adding that cinematic element to make it a little bit more interesting than perhaps it was. Like I said, I feel like I'm maybe being a bit too harsh with that one, but yeah, when I see a cliche, I've kind of got to flag it. But apart from that, I thought Last Breath was captivating. A real joyride, a popcorn flick for the whole family that everyone can get invested in. And I think it's a great story, and I'm glad that it's being told, and I'm glad that I'm aware of it. I'm going to give Last Breath a 9 out of 10. Next up was Novocaine, starring Jack Quaid, who plays a man who cannot feel pain. He falls in love and tries to rescue the girl after being part of a bank robbery. I saw very early on that this movie was getting bad to middle of the road reviews, and that pretty much killed any enjoyment I had or excitement as we approached this movie. But I tried to be open-minded and hope for the best, and sadly that just was not enough for Novocaine. This really is one of the most pointless and forgettable films that I've seen in a very long time. I just felt nothing from start to finish. It doesn't really allow you to feel anything. My God, is this movie rushed. It is a very quick and breezy hour and 40 minutes. They don't ever stop to really establish any story, any character, any personality or development or anything interesting that you as an audience member might want to hook onto and see how it turns out. It is so lazily written. The dialogue is awkward. They try this humour. They even know that the humour is poorly written because you'll often have reactions of the other actors laughing as if you, the audience member, couldn't tell a joke or not. It's not that we can't tell a joke, it's that the joke sucks and it isn't funny, and I'd rather you did something interesting. At any time in this film you have any opportunity to just do something, and you just aren't. My God, I'd rather watch a snail make its way from one side of the room to the other. This is just thankless, pointless. It's a pay gap for some of these actors who have got fuck all else going on at the minute. And on that note, the performances suck. There really isn't anything to write home about this movie. Okay, maybe some of the action's okay, some of the camera work, but it's nothing new, nothing original. I've seen all of this done way better in films like Upgrade. And with it being written so lazily and so messily, the damn thing just doesn't even make sense. Apparently he can't feel pain, and yet they sort of build up this anticipation to these moments where he's about to do something painful. But of course there's no anticipation to it because we know he can't feel pain, so what's the point? Am I meant to be bothered that he burnt his hand and doesn't care? Then there's other times where he can feel pain because he is scared of dying, so he can die, but he just won't feel it. I don't know. It doesn't make an awful lot of sense. He can feel pleasure. I give up. I'm already applying too much thought to this. I am applying more thought than the writers did. I can see it as a problem, but they can't. They just went, fuck it, that'll do. And that's the sort of movie that you end up with here. Fuck it, that'll do. The sheer fact that I have seen worse, and the editing was okay at times, and there was clearly a very, very mediocre effort in the action, I'm going to give Novocaine a 2 out of 10. And to be honest, I think it can thank me for it. Next up is Electric State on Netflix. And yes, this movie has been getting quite the rap of late because it has a $320 million budget, which is beyond belief. Utterly outrageous. Bear in mind that Avengers Endgame was roughly 350 million. I cannot wrap my head around what possessed Netflix to make that financial decision. And I saw the trailer and just did not want to watch this. This did not look like my cup of tea. I am not a fan of the Russo brothers if they are not doing a Marvel movie. The Grey Man was one of the worst movies I saw the year it came out. I so didn't want to watch this movie that I actively stalled it on 4 occasions. I could have watched this way sooner, and I just said no. I have better things to do. But after all, it is my job, and sometimes it really does feel like a job. So I sat myself down and I got my way through it. And I will give it this. The Electric State is better than I expected. It is made in a moderately competent manner. I do think the CGI is okay to impressive. I don't think it's mind-bending. I don't think it's the greatest CGI I've ever seen for the budget that it has, but it's good. I've seen a hell of a lot worse, that's for sure. I do certainly think that there are some younger audience members and maybe some young families who could get together with a pizza takeaway and enjoy it for what it is. And I'd even go as far as saying that I do think there's an awful lot of imagination to the world building here. But sadly, that is all I have to say about this movie on a positive note. Because to be honest, I just found The Electric State to be so weightless. It feels like so many ideas just thrown in a blender, regardless of if they actually connect to each other or say anything meaningful, and just see what happens. It's incredibly hodgepodge and slapped together at times, going in left and right directions, saying very little, achieving very little, being pretty unentertaining at times. I really couldn't stand the cast. I am no fan of Millie Bobby Brown. I don't really understand how she has a career, because I'm still yet to see a good performance from her. Apparently vibrating your head with a frown and having a nosebleed makes you a world-class actress. I beg to differ. Chris Pratt is just doing another rendition of Star-Lord here, but it was hilarious staring at his wig throughout the movie. Again, $320 million couldn't get them a decent wig. I find that concerning. And it's extremely derivative of plenty of other movies that are just touching on the same ideas that have already been done and already been done better. It's so lazy, in fact, that they really do feel like direct steals. I didn't always really understand why these robots existed. There's a Punch and Judy robot. I mean, I haven't seen a Punch and Judy stand myself since I was a very young boy, so why you would need a robot to perform Punch and Judy just seems like a complete waste of mechanics. They have these targets that are rubber ducks. Why would a bullseye target be a rubber duck? I feel like they're just slinging shit at a wall and seeing what happens. And none of it's original, and I didn't care about any of it. I felt almost nothing when it ended, except for, well, I guess it wasn't as bad as I thought. I do certainly think some people have been going in a little bit too hard on it. I have seen plenty of 1 stars and 1 out of 10s, and I don't think it's that bad. I mean, come on, there's movies like Popeye's Revenge out there. In the grand scheme of things, this is better than Popeye's Revenge. Let's be real here. As much as I myself didn't like this movie, I have to give it that. But can I recommend it? No. And did I enjoy it? No, not really. I just didn't hate it. It's exceptionally middle of the road and very head-scratching as to why on earth it needed a budget like this, and where on earth half of that budget went when you're looking at awful wigs on Chris Pratt's head and CGI that you have definitely seen done before in other impressive movies with good CGI. But I've thought about it long and hard, and the best score that I can give The Electric State is a 4 out of 10. And last but not least, we're mixing it up with a TV series from Netflix, Adolescence, starring Stephen Graham, who one morning wakes up with the police at his door arresting his son for murder. This was recommended to me by my auntie, and she often comes up with some really interesting recommendations, and she spoke very positively of it, so I had to check it out. And I'm really glad I did. I thought this was a really interesting series that had a lot to say about a very interesting subject matter. It's absolutely undeniable that the performances are sensational. Stephen Graham once again blows the door off its damn hinges. He really is a sensational actor. And it is another collaboration between Stephen Graham and Philip Barantini, who previously made Boiling Point, which is the film about the chefs in the kitchen, and it's all done in one take. And just like Boiling Point, Adolescence is also done in one take per episode, which is extremely impressive. That must have taken an awful lot of work, time and dedication, and they did it brilliantly. I have nothing to say about that except well done. It is only 4 episodes, with each episode being an hour each, so it's extremely bingeable, and it is very captivating. You will find it very easy to press next episode. And I, for one, thought that episode 1 and 3 were absolute knockouts. 10 out of 10 in my book. I thought they were brilliant. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but they had me on the edge of my seat from start to finish. Episode 3 in particular, that was really something, especially from the child performance involved in that episode. And that, unfortunately, is where we do have to turn to the complaints, because as much as I liked episode 1 and 3, I didn't feel the same way about episodes 2 and 4. Episode 2 in particular, I think, is a really bad episode. I would go as far as saying that you can outright skip it. In the time of watching it, I was enjoying it for what it was. I did think it was quite funny, and probably the only moment that the camera maneuvers were ruined in a chase that they do on foot. It's very evident that the actors are not running at full sprint, and they are holding back a little bit to let the camera keep up with them, and it just looked a bit goofy. I like the characters that they have. I like some of the development and arcs that they have, but when I look back at it, that second episode really didn't achieve anything. It was so pointless. It doesn't lead to anything. Any of the characters that you meet in that episode you never see again. So what was the point? I just don't know why it was there. You could have easily gone from episode 1 straight into episode 3 and nothing would have changed. And episode 4, personally, I think is a good episode, and Stephen Graham really shines in it, and I still think they explore interesting aspects of this story in that episode. But I thought it was a very weird place to finish. It doesn't actually feel finished, to be honest with you. I feel like there's still one more episode, but there isn't. It is done. That's it. And I was also extremely disappointed in the show because it actually becomes quite hypocritical. In the second episode that I didn't like, they take a moment to pause and point out quite clearly that in situations like this, it's always the victim that gets forgotten about, and it is the killer who is remembered. And yet this show, despite pointing that out, does the exact same thing. At no point in this show do we ever hear anything from the victim's perspective or how their family are dealing with the situation. It utterly, entirely focuses on the importance of the killer. And I think that's just so wrong, especially if you're going to take the time out of your day to point out that that's wrong. I don't think that's being meta either. I don't think they're trying to, point a finger back at the audience and blame us, because that doesn't work. I think a little bit like in Boiling Point, the director once again just doesn't know how to wrap this all up. I thoroughly liked Boiling Point, except that ending. The ending sucks, I gotta be honest with you. It just sort of ends with no aim or reason, and it comes completely out of nowhere. And I don't think it's quite as bad here in Adolescence, but I still found it unsatisfying, unfinished. I do think it could have said a lot more and gone a lot further. But despite those complaints, I did still thoroughly enjoy this. I thought it was a captivating watch. I had so much to say about it by the end. Me and Mrs. IMO talked about it for a solid half an hour as we pieced it all together. It's about 4 hours long on Netflix. It's extremely bingeable with some fantastic performance and mind-bending camera techniques. I really do think it's worth checking out. I don't think it's perfect, but I am going to give Adolescence an 8 out of 10. Thank you for watching this review. Please be sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and please do hit the comment section as well. Have you seen any of the movies that we've discussed today? Let me know in the comment section down below. And of course, if you haven't had enough of this crazy ginger, you can always click on these suggested videos right here and get yourself lost in an IMO wormhole. But if not, take care, and I look forward to seeing you on the next review.